Hey, good morning.
I know,
Thanks
I know.
everyone for being here today.
I'll work
We
on it.
will.
I'll work on
Go ahead and get started. Can you hear us online?
Yep, good morning. We can hear you.
Thanks, Robert. If you're joining us on Zoom, could you please do your introduction in the chat for me? It's important. I've been missing a lot of people. So go ahead and give me your name and affiliation. So if you're with an HOA, please put that in there as well. So we'll start with introductions.
Good morning, David Mormon, American Red Cross.
Kyle Collins, Deschutes County Planning.
Bob Lichty, Witchy Creek HOA.
Megan Fullerton, Central Oregon Tree Experts.
Tony DeVoe, Deschutes County Commissioner.
Greg Brown, Shrewsbury Woods.
Robin Church, Three Pines HOA, Summit West Neighborhood District, Emergency Preparedness Lead, and Project Wildfire Neighborhood Coalition.
Lauren Street, Deschutes County Natural Resources.
Kevin Moriarty, Deschutes County Forester.
And Corinne Heiner, Deschutes County Fire Adapted Communities Coordinator. And so a couple of announcements. Fire Free is coming up. The not landfill starts on Friday, May 2nd, goes through the 11th. They're open 7 days a week from 7 to 4:30. And then the transfer stations dates are May 16th through the 24th. And that flyer is also posted on the Natural Resources website. So one other thing, tomorrow we have one of the first wildfire preparedness fairs of a series of them. That's going to be in Sisters at Fire Station 701. The address is 301 South Elm Street. So if you're in the area, please join us. A lot of tables and some good info to have there. Lauren and I will be there.
Is that with Melissa? What is Melissa putting that on?
Yeah, she's
okay.
one of them. Heather Miller is.
Or Heather, yeah, okay.
Yeah. It's come through the co-op subcommittee for the wildfire education. And then I think Lauren has an announcement for us. Or was that Kevin?
Oh, I can do it, yeah. Yeah, so we are doing this spring sweat equity VIN rental program. So we've received 45 applications for that, and we had the funds to award 30 of those. So those communities are aware that they've been funded, and they are now in communication with the disposal companies. So they will be provided bins through May and June. And some communities are doing cleanup days, some are just having, rotating where the bins are getting picked up. But that is, those have been awarded, and that should be starting soon.
Let's see, and then also the reporting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for the fall fuels reduction grants from 2024, the reporting form will be coming out in the next week or so to folks that were awarded last fall.
Yeah, and then let's see, just a couple more announcements. So yeah, just on those wildfire preparedness fairs, we have a few coming up in Deschutes County. April 16th, we have the Sisters Preparedness Fair 5 to 8, Sisters Fire Station. April 26th, we have a wildfire preparedness fair at the Lapine Community Center from 9 to noon. It's a Saturday. And then on April 30th at COCC at the Mazama Gym from 5 to 8, there's also preparedness fair. So good stuff going on in preparedness month. A couple other announcements. Let's see, we did receive the discretionary funding, $50,000 from Oregon Lottery. Thanks, commissioners, for that. Appreciate that. That will bolster our fall fuel reduction grant program. Will remain the same amount that we had last year, which will be $125,000. So again, that grant program The application will most likely run in the month of September, and awards will be issued probably within a month of that time. And then you can use that money through the next calendar year, all the way to June 30th. So stay tuned for that grant coming up this fall. And we also have budgeted another 75,000 for the bin rental program for next year as well. So we'll have the bin rental program this year, which we just announced awards, and we will have that program next year with the same amount. So stay tuned for that.
Can I step in there? So the
Yeah.
video lottery fund is about $1 million comes in through the video lotteries at the bars and facilities around the county. Goes to the state and then comes back to us. The commissioners just did our spreadsheet for that fund. We kept that $50,000 from last year into this year's commitments. But there's a lot of nonprofits getting like 9% cuts in their funds. We're doing other things with those dollars. So economic development and emergency food, clothing, and shelter are getting 9% less, but we kept that $50,000 at that same level. So we should celebrate that, but understand that that budget path for Deschutes County proper is just getting kind of narrow right now. You know, we used to be able to say, oh yeah, we'll fund this, we'll fund that, but it's just not that as much anymore.
Thanks, Commissioners. All right, so I have.
We've had 3 more come in. Could you do your introduction for me? So recording.
Yeah, I'm Grant. I contractor and management element. We're doing fire mitigation.
No problem. Dean Richardson with Upper Deschutes River Community.
Welcome. Okay, so I'm pretty excited for this morning's presentation. We have going from Firewise. So Megan, if you are ready, you should be able to share your screen. You have a presentation prepared for us. These slides.
Perfect. Let me see if I can get that going. All right, how's that looking? Are you seeing my slide?
Yes.
Great. Well, hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I am Megan Fitzgerald-McGowan. I work for the National Fire Protection Association in our Wildfire Division, and I am the Firewise USA Program Manager serving the whole country. I'm also a former firefighter with Washington DNR. I'm from the Pacific Northwest. And it was my work in fire that led me to this. Lots of time spent helping protect homes and communities, thinking, man, what else can we be doing? How can I be a part of that? And so I transitioned out of suppression over to more preparedness and prevention. I joined NFPA in 2017. And before I joined them, I just kind of knew NFPA as well. They tell us what kind of lights we can have on our trucks, and they do this Firewise thing. And I've come to learn a lot more, and I'll share a little bit about NFPA on the next slide. And then just, you know, my whole kind of philosophy, or the point of view I come at this from, is no one person, no one entity has all the solutions, and that we really need to work together. And the work we do at NFPA and with the Firewise program and the other stuff we do in the Wildfire Division is they're part of the toolbox. They're not the only tool though, right? So I'm just going to share how we approach things and what we approach it from. If there are, you know, questions throughout, I'm happy to take them. I know there's a long history of participation in Firewise in Deschutes County. So I'm sure I'll go over some stuff that you already know, but I think it helps to paint the whole picture. And I'll kind of go into, once we have that foundation, where we're heading and just kind of what we're seeing out there on the landscape, as I think we can all acknowledge it's tough out there right now. So a little bit about NFPA. We have been around quite some time. We were founded in 1896, originally really around this idea of an electric code after there had been some fires, but things evolved, and we support the development of a lot of different codes and standards around the fire and life safety ecosystem. So our whole focus is how do we eliminate death, injury, property, and economic loss due to fire and those related hazards. We are, along with codes and standards, a membership organization to support people out in the field who are doing all these different things, inspections, enforcement, all of that. We have a lot of volunteers who help us do the work that we do. I don't know if anyone in the room there is a member or is a part of one of our technical committees, but if there is someone participating in the call who is, thank you. We like to say that out of all the people in the world who can help create codes, NFPA staff are not the ones. We are not allowed to be a part of the process. We support the process, but we have no say in writing the codes, and we really depend on participation of people to help inform them, write them, so we can then deliver them. So I think, you know, you can see on that slide all kinds of information. The space that I work in with that, within an NFPA is really those last two bullets. The wildfire division is under outreach and advocacy, and we partner with our public education division, who's more on the home fire safety side, but we work with them, we learn from them, and we're all a part of the outreach and advocacy division at NFPA. Within the wildfire realm, these are the things we are trying to impact. So we have a policy out there, Outthink Wildfire. We rolled that out in 2020, 2021 with this big dream of ending the destruction of communities from wildfires in, I think, 30 years. It's big, it's audacious, but it's really looking at the whole system, and we have to set some sort of goal out there, right? If we want to start moving things forward. So we've been doing things in there. Our policy aligns with what we see. It was designed to fit with the framework of the cohesive strategy. Michelle Steinberg, my boss, was also a part of the National Wildfire Commission and helped inform that report that was delivered to Congress. So it's not random and out there. It's in alignment with these things. Again, the codes and standards, training and certification, professional training and certification. I want to emphasize that, and that is for like certification for an individual. We do not have a home certification or community certification program. We have a recognition program. To us, those are very different words, and it's important to make sure that that's clear. Community engagement and public education. So all of those things work together to move us forward. As you all know, you can't just do one little slice of wildfire and think you're going to solve anything or make a lot of progress. You have to look at the whole picture. And other ways that we support this work, just so you're aware, we also work with the media. We have a media relations team at NFPA, but we are out there pitching stories, providing subject matter expertise, statistics, B-roll, but we also try to help make those connections to the local level. So while we might be able to give big picture perspectives or some specific numbers around Firewise participation, if we have people reaching out to us for a story that is very much in a local area, my goal is always to give some insights, but then help connect them to that local area. But we're here to talk about wildfire, and we will move into Firewise in just a second. But, you know, wanted to throw this out there. Structures and residents are at risk to fire anywhere, and our vision focuses on life safety and property loss elimination. And we've been heavily engaged consistently since 1985, working with the Forest Service and other federal partners, part of the WUI kind of committee back then. But we've had stuff related to forested areas and fires since the 1930s, and you can see that with the picture of this standard there. I heard a voice. Did you need to chime in with something a second ago? Nope. All right.
I think someone accidentally unmuted.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions online, it's helpful if you raise your hand so that we can see.
Yeah, and the screen I'm looking at, I can't see that, so just just pause me, interrupt me as that happens. So foundation for action. Why do we do the work that we do? NFPA is really focused on the built environment side of the wildfire problem. And it started again with those conversations back in the 80s, working with those federal organizations who were, were seeing these large fire events, seeing this loss, and they were trying to find a partner. They have many partners, but that private parcel home piece is not really their jurisdiction. Many of our partners in the wildfire space are land management organizations, and they do community and structure protection, but that's not their focus, their mission, right? They are there to help protect the land, manage that side of things. So we were brought in along with others, and through our work with them and Jack Cohen, kind of the vision that's been our guide is this idea that wildland fires can occur in areas of residential development without the occurrence of disastrous loss, and that in fact a house and its surrounding community can be compatible with the area's ecosystem. And that's a lot to take in, but we know that science-based actions can work. And here's an example that from a recent fire in California, from the Palisades fire. The picture on the left with the fire and the flames and everything was taken by a community brigade member during the event. The only action that was taken at this home intervention was to move the grill further away from the house. You can see it in the background there. Otherwise, this home had done work ahead of time. They worked on their zone zero. I mean, we can see that there's still plants there and maybe things can be further improved, but they did a lot of work ahead of time. And then the picture on the right is 3 weeks after the fire. They did find, evidence of embers that had fallen at the house in that 5-foot area. So we know it was directly impacted, but it made it through. And this tells us that things do work. And that fire, we know it had a lot of loss. And we don't know everything that happened here or if the wind direction changed, those different things, but there are examples out there. And that leads us to, okay, the science. And the science is where the program works from, the recommendations we put out there. And based on that research by Dr. Jack Cohen and others like IBHS and other organizations who have come after, but the whole idea that fire does not engulf everything in its path, that it only goes to areas that, can burn, and that if we alter the type, size, and quantity of spacing of vegetation and other fuels include houses. Once we have that transition from a wildland fire to a structure fire, it's a whole different ballgame because the embers from those structures are bigger and they are just showering all the homes around them. So really, how do we help prevent those homes from igniting and being that second fuel source? We've had that further research by IBHS really looking at the impact of embers on the homes, looking at the construction type and that immediate landscaping. So that's the science that we use to inform what we do, right? And we work from the principle of the home ignition zone, originally coined by Jack Cohen, that the home and 0 to 100 feet from the base, or it's for this attachment like a deck. That's the area that makes a difference. And that we have to have fire resistant building materials and construction, really limiting the amount of flammable vegetation and periodic exterior maintenance. Just kind of an example to highlight one approach that could be done. Just again, more examples of, if you look at a home from one side, it might look pretty good. The front, they've got a lot of spacing. They have plants, but they use a lot of rock and they have space in between things. But when you look off to the side, that thicker, more dense vegetation with juniper and brush is still within their home ignition zone. And you can see there are multiple homes within that as well. And so that's that other area. It's not just the house itself, but trying to address that. And we know people are also trying to maintain privacy and different things. So how do we find that balance and how do we work together? And that's really what Firewise is all about, is we have these overlapping home ignition zones. We do directly impact our neighbors and our neighbors impact us. And therefore we should work together and try to come forward in a collaborative way. All right, so Firewise USA, again, I know a lot of you are familiar with the program, but we'll just kind of run through what it is and what it is not. So a recognition program that provides a framework to help residents get organized, find direction, and take action to increase the ignition resistance of their homes and communities. It is a voluntary program. We have a set of criteria for joining. However, communities choose to participate. There's no mandate that says that they must. And our recommendations might be general and broad. Again, they are based in science, but if any area has, regulations on the books, like in California, they have their defensible space inspections. They're moving forward with their zone 0 regulation. If you all have a county ordinance or something in your area that says you must or you shall do this, we don't supersede that. We help bring people together to help them do that collective work, but that doesn't mean they don't have to meet any of those things that are also in place. And I like to put that out there because we do get people who reach out and say, well, this is contradictory, or you don't meet what we have to follow. No, we might not, and that's okay. You have to follow whatever your local laws and regulations are, and we acknowledge that. So it's not the solution to everything. It is a way to bring people together. The program started in 2002 with 12 original pilot sites, and 9 of those are still active today, which is awesome. And they found value then, and they still find value in participating. None of those 9 have dropped off over the years. Sometimes we see communities come and go, but they have been active and have kept going. And it is a partnership between NFPA, the Forest Service, DOI is still engaged, and then NASF. We have a direct cooperative agreement with the Forest Service that helps to fund things like the portal, some of our time, outreach events that we attend, the materials that we develop, the signs that we send out. It's a dollar for dollar match. And through that, we also have our connection to NASF, the National Association of State Foresters. That is how we actually connect to the states to have a state liaison. So it's really this idea of, individuals coming together to say they want to make a difference. And then there's the local practitioners who support them. We have our state liaison, who's typically housed within the state forestry or Department of Natural Resources, whoever has the state forester, and then NFPA. And it's meant to be community driven, but sometimes this gets flipped and it's more top down. But the idea is really, it's about people talking to each other, sharing their expertise, sharing their concerns, being supportive. But we have seen over the years in areas where it's very organizationally led, like if a fire department wants to do everything, sometimes that person leaves, or that department or it could be an agency loses funding, and then those community members later are like, oh, I thought we did this Firewise thing, but they were never really engaged in owning it and doing it and being their own advocates. And we see them kind of drop by the wayside. And again, the program is the program, but are they buying into, oh, we own the work that we do. We own our part of the solution to the wildfire problem. And that's where I really like to make that emphasis, is we're all there to support them. But if you live where fires burn, you have to be an active part of that. And you can't just be passive and thinking that people are going to come, save your home or do all the work for you. You have to own that part. And that's what we're trying to get out there and what I'm trying to communicate through with this slide. As people work through the process, on the administrative side, officially the applications trickle down to the state liaison. They do the approval at the state level, and then it comes to us. But really, again, it's about people and connections and seeing how they fit within everything. Some of you have probably seen this slide before, but it's one of my favorite quotes from a community member. This idea that having a Firewise sign in front of your neighborhood doesn't mean you're done. It means that you admit you have a problem. And this has been part of the feedback over the years, oh, we were assigned to this fire and we went into this community that had a sign, but man, they still have a lot of work to do. Yes, Firewise USA participation is not an endpoint. When you join, you're making that commitment to annual work. Some communities are further along on their journey than others. And some might need a little, you know, kind of nudge to get going a little more in depth. But the idea is at least they are acknowledging they have a problem. They're starting to take action, and then that can make them more open to other ideas, other things, participating in other ways, whether it's supporting codes and regulations, supporting inspections, being advocates for different things. But I just like to put that out there because that has been feedback over the years. And I have certainly been in some communities and lived in a community that was part of the Firewise program where like, whew, we got a lot of work to do. And part of it was the topography, just where we sat was not in our favor. So how do we do all the things that we can do to kind of balance that steep terrain through fuels management and making sure our home is nice and buttoned up. But moving forward, while the program is community-based, it also encourages, again, that individual responsibility. And it's that private parcel piece, right? You know, ODF might not have that ability to come onto people's property and tell them, you must do this to your home. But they can go and encourage them, like, here's the things that we see, or any of the partners who are there, who are doing home assessments. If you don't have that authoritative arm, you're encouraging people to do the things science-based, working together. And sometimes our message to those community members is the work that you do, it's not only making a difference for yourself, but it's helping your responders, helping those organizations who are going to come in when the fire hits. And we do have a video, I imagine some of you have seen it, from Durango a few years ago, where fire chief, the Firewise community leaders, and the local partner share their experience with the program and what this community had done ahead of a fire and how it made that difference when that fire hit. So I can share that out later if you want me to, Corinne, but you know, it kind of takes all of these bullet points and kind of wraps them together in a little video, just really highlighting the difference that being proactive can make.
Yeah, that would be great if you could share it with me. That way I can put it in with our meeting notes.
Perfect, I will, because it's kind of buried on our website, unfortunately. So I will send you a good link. Program wide, we have 2,800 communities that are currently in good standing across the country. A lot of growth has happened in the last few years in California, Oregon, Arizona, but we continue to see strong participation across the South and the Southeast and up the Eastern coast. And then Hawaii in the last couple of years has more than doubled what they had in terms of participation numbers, and they have a bunch in the hopper. And the growth in California and Hawaii, I can confidently say, are directly impacted or influenced by fires that have burned there. But we also see participation growing due to insurance concerns, hopefully people just wanting to be more proactive and acknowledging that they live in these wildfire areas. But we know there are many drivers, and you know, we're just trying to pay attention to those. But it's a good thing to have. I will say, when I joined NFPA in 2017, I think we were at like 1,500 communities. So it's been a lot, and it's great. I always like to see quality with that quantity, and that's some of my concern right now, or where our focus is when we're putting out messaging around like prep day and where the work should be done that really matters, or why we have done things like put in update cycles for action plans and risk assessments. Is it's great to have 2,800 communities, but if they're only doing it for the paperwork side, specifically in California to get insurance, are they making a difference, or are they just checking a box? And our funders at the Forest Service want to know about these things, like what kind of quality are we getting? But just as a concerned former firefighter and believer in mitigation work, it's what is the quality, and how do we help increase that quality within our participating communities or any communities? Some Oregon numbers. Oregon is number 2 in the country with 303 active communities. Woohoo! And then your county, and they're in Deschutes County, 76 active sites, 5th county overall when we look across the whole country, and number 1 in Oregon. So I know you all are highly engaged. You have highly engaged communities, and we thank you. But I more just want to celebrate them and that they are choosing to participate. They are choosing to do work. They are acknowledging that there is a problem there and that there are steps that they can take. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And then kind of a fun little number with that. In 2024, there were 300 communities that reported in Oregon with either new applications or their renewals, with over $14 million, $14 million dollars invested in risk reduction activities as reported to us, and that could be hours worked or money spent. And then in Deschutes County, it was over 3.8 million. So people they're doing a lot, and that's amazing. So just wanted to celebrate you all because those are the numbers that are just great to see.
Good. This is not good.
So how do we join? And then this, I'm sure a lot of you already know, the whole idea is we need to be organized, form a board or committee comprised of residents and wildfire stakeholders. And we're starting to see this shift a little bit more to having multiple resident leaders in the Firewise portal, really building that committee, because we know for so long, especially with those early sites, it's one person leading the way, trying to organize their neighbors, trying to help work with their fire department to set up an event. And that's a lot for one person to do on a voluntary basis. And how do we keep encouraging communities to, find a committee, find different strengths that different people have that they're willing to take on? Because it can be a lot, and community dynamics, it can be a lot for one person to manage without help. So really that idea of a committee of multiple residents and their other partners, they need to complete I want to change this to complete like a wildfire risk assessment, because to me, obtaining says you just get it from someone, when it really should be a collaborative process of those wildfire experts working with the resident leaders to look at the overall community, to share back and forth. Well, we as community members, we see this as the problem, and that local expert can either say, oh yes, or really say, well, I get why you would see that as the problem, but here's where I'm concerned and why, that back and forth. So it should really be a collaborative process to develop that risk assessment, not just handed to them, with good conversation of what's going well, what can be improved, and what are the next steps. And then they need to determine a size and boundary. So we've got 8 to 2,500 dwelling units that can be in any given community. It is self-selected. It should be a contiguous boundary. We are starting to see more communities really only want to put the boundary around homes that have committed to action. And so they're really trying to, kind of cherry pick. And from a social behavior standpoint, that's not great. It's not inclusive. It really then pits people against each other. So I'm just throwing that out there. As much as you can, inclusive boundaries, acknowledging that some people might carry the load for other members within that boundary, but over time we do see kind of that nudging approach and that peer pressure, more people come on board. From that risk assessment, they will make a plan, and CAL FIRE has a really excellent template that aligns with what's in the portal. You don't have to use it. And then I've seen some great stuff come out of Oregon. And it's something that we're looking at, like, should we develop a 3-year action plan template? But, the idea of you take what's in the risk assessment, start to line it out. What can you tackle each year? What can you prioritize? How do you build on things as you go? And that's why these 2 documents are no longer just submit when you first join and then never look at them again. Because we have seen communities 15 years in where, they have their chipper, they do a wine and cheese event, they all talk, and that's what they do for the year. And that's not enough. And maybe they're doing other things, but that's what they tell us about. And are they setting themselves up for success, or are they setting themselves up for failure when the fire hits? And we have seen mixed results within participating communities when they have faced large fire events. And some of them have come back and said, yeah, that area where the fire came into our community, we knew we needed to do work there. We just hadn't prioritized it yet. Or, they saw success where they had focused a lot of their efforts. So, that the action plan should be building smart goals.
Megan, I don't know if you can hear us, but what's going on with the audio.
Oh, shoot. I have not moved or changed, but you can't hear me?
Video's working, but no audio coming in.
No audio. Okay.
Sounds like
We
a buzz
can
in the
hear online,
background
yeah.
too. Might be.
Yeah, we can hear online.
Yeah. Might need to
Okay.
reconnect.
So online can hear me, but the room can't hear me.
You're online.
Oh, that's, yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Technical support.
If the tech with or without.
Let me know if I need to leave and come back in.
I know.
I know
Yeah, I
that
can try
noise
that.
is coming through. But
Here, yeah.
For final call, so just stop.
Okay, they're gonna log out and come back in.
He's muted right now.
Okay, we're back.
Can you hear us now?
She's muted.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
There we go. Yeah.
Sorry, we had something happen with our
Stop.
audio. Had to log out.
That's,
dogs need to log
It's working.
back in.
No.
these things happen.
Oh, rebooted.
I got back on.
All right, do you want me to keep going?
Yep, we're good here.
Okay. So the other steps to joining, you have to host a minimum of one, outreach event each year, and then meet the risk reduction investment. And this is another point of confusion. Sometimes we get people who are ready to submit and they're like, well, I can't submit my application. And I go in and I look and it's like, well, you haven't done any work yet and told us about it. And there's, oh, we actually have to do stuff before we join. Yes. And those hours for joining can include the time you spent organizing, the time you spent doing the risk assessment, developing the action plan, doing outreach meetings to your community members, but then also any work that was done. So that's just one point to kind of touch on is we do get applications where people are trying to send them in and they get held up. So you do actually have to do work. And then it's all done via our online portal, which was having a bug, but it's fixed now. So if you were trying to log into the portal yesterday and you couldn't, sorry, but it appears to be working again. And when that stuff goes through the portal, now notifications are sent automatically. We still get people who are like, oh, we'll email you and tell you everything. I'm like, no, we're good. It's all online. We don't take paper applications anymore. We are a dispersed workforce. And just with that number that you can see with over 2,800, we brought on over 400 communities last year. And if we were still a paper program, that would just be a lot more than I would want to process. So it's all online. And then let's see, next, to remain in the program, you pretty much have to do the same thing every year. You might not have to you don't have to update your documents each year, but you have to host that outreach event. You need to do the work and you tell us about it online via the renewal application, which every year is due mid-November, but it can be worked on throughout the year. And this is that good reminder of if you check on it throughout the year, you can always see, oh, my documents need to be updated. So I should start having those conversations. We do start that outreach process in September and have those reminders in our direct email and our print mailer that goes out. We've also added some language to those auto reminders that go out. And if you're not getting any of those, if you're one of the communities participating online and you're not getting those reminders. If you're the resident leader, please make sure to check your spam filters or to add NFPA to your safe list, because we know sometimes we get people in December or January of the following year saying, well, no one ever told me. I'm like, whoa, we tried. Or just making sure we have the correct information for you. It was more in the early days, but people used to give us fake email addresses that they wouldn't actually receive emails at because they didn't want information from NFPA, but that is a way we communicate not only about Firewise, but about prep day. We do try to really limit what goes out to you. And if you have signed up for, your NFP account and said, I don't want marketing emails, you won't get them. I will only send you stuff that is very pertinent to maintaining your status in the program. So if you say, I don't want marketing emails, you're not going to get the prep day emails that our marketing department sends out. You're only going to get things that are specific to Firewise USA participation. And we really try to respect that because we have to respect that with our FCC license. So, that's just, we do the best we can, but if you are choosing to not talk to us, then we can't give you information. I think I can kind of zip through these because you all know about the program and are already choosing to participate, but we do know from different surveys that we've done. We did a pilot a couple years ago trying to get some communities to do more, that people feel empowered by this, and that is the goal. How do we be empowered to take action to feel like we can make a difference? This is from that Durango video that I mentioned. We help the firefighters save our neighborhood. And if my boss was here, anytime she reads this quote or talks about the video, she just starts to tear up because you can feel and hear their emotion in the video. This is the fire chief also from the Durango area who spoke about the community and the efforts that they had done and what made a difference. And then we have a quote here from Maine, and this is an interesting one to look at because they're talking about cottages where it's kind of remote. I think it's on an island, and that idea that we have to work together because we are our first line of defense. So that's quick overview of Firewise, the history, its purpose, what we're trying to do. But in this ever-changing landscape, I wanted to touch on some of the other things going on. So I've heard that some of the IBHS stuff is moving into Oregon, and we are working directly with them. And I can't really see a show of hands, but maybe, Corinne, you can tell me what the room says. How many of you have heard about the IBHS Wildfire Prepared Home designation? Is that on your radar?
I've got about 5 hands up in front.
Okay, well, so IBHS last year, I think it was last year, rolled out their home designation, and they have Wildfire Prepared Home and Wildfire Prepared Home Plus. They have a list of things on their page that must be met in order for a home to receive the designation. So while Firewise USA's recognition, people pick and choose what they do, to get the Wildfire Prepared Home designation, you have to do all the things. And if you want the plus version, you have to do more things. And we have received questions. There's a group in California from United Policyholders. They have this wildfire working group WRAP program. And, I've sat on some calls there and done presentations, and people are like, well, we're already doing Firewise. Why should we do this? Why do we have to do this? And it's not you don't have to do one or the other. Really, it's both, right? When we look at our participating communities or just any on the landscape, we need people to achieve that higher level of mitigation at the structure level and within their landscaping, within that 5-foot zone. And that's really what the prepared home designation does. It is set criteria. It is a standard. And we work together. We co-promote. The way I see it, the more homes within a Firewise site that have that actual home designation, the stronger that community is because they are meeting that higher level. It is the same science. So, they're actively doing that in California, but I have heard there is interest and they are starting to spread into Oregon. And even if they aren't offering the designation in your area, because there's a whole inspection process that goes with it, all of the information about what people have to meet is free and available on the wildfireprepared.org website. that people can choose to then work towards. And when we look, and I don't speak for IBHS, but I speak with them a lot. When we look at the insurance kind of situation out there, IBHS is funded by the insurance industry. Not all insurance companies pay into them, but a lot of the big ones do. And they went to IBHS and said, we need you to come up with something now. And, you know, they wanted a home program and a neighborhood program. And so really it's trying to find solutions to help keep the insurance industry engaged in writing coverage, writing policies, maintaining policies, all of those different things. So we do work together, we present a lot together, and they are now moving forward with a community designation built off that wildfire prepared home and working with us around the social science of Firewise and looking at some of the organizational structure as a way to pilot, to test and learn. So we have an official MOU with IBHS, really looking at alignment of messaging, making sure that we're sharing the same information, development of co-branded resources on promoting home improvements and the community-based space, and then again, supporting them as they work through this community-based designation. They recently did an event in San Diego in California for a new community that's being built. The builder, I forget the name, they had a few models built where it meets that plus designation, and they're going to continue to build out that way. So that's the easy win, right? As we build new communities, having them built with wildfire in mind. But we know, I don't think I included the map in this presentation, looking at like the information on wildfirerisk.org, millions of homes that are at risk across the country in different counties. And how do we start working on the already existing communities to get them to that next higher level of mitigation? So it's very, very early stages, even trying to identify communities who we could talk to see like, can you meet the baseline requirements of spacing, all roofs have to be Class A. There's a couple other things to then even proceed with, okay, now let's do the analysis to see if there's this opportunity to meet this eventually, and you know, coming back with here's all the things you and your community members need to do, or not. But very early stages, and more to come on that. But we know that to make a difference, we really have to have all the parts working. So suppression, land management, but it's also how do we bring the built environment along. And then insurance, which relates to that. Just this reminder, we are not sponsored or funded by the insurance industry, but we do have specific efforts where we work together, like around Wildfire Community Preparedness Day, and that the program Firewise was not developed for insurance purposes. However, over time, USAA was the first to come to us back in like 2010 to say, hey, we see what you're doing here, and we're interested in seeing how this program benefits our members. So early data gave them, you know, shared with them, and they ran their own analysis and saw that for their members who lived in Firewise sites, they had a decrease in loss from wildfire and other hazards because it's a more activated community. They started with California and going forward to that Department of Insurance to get an incentive within their rate plan approved. And since then they have applied in other states, and now they offer a discount in 10 states total, all in the West. As interest in the situation in California grew, they put in place the Safer from Wildfires regulation, which lists Firewise specifically as one of the community approaches that insurers must take into consideration when factoring out their rate plans to meet that need. We are now working through companies like Verisk, I think Red Zone, Zesty AI. I have a list somewhere of these are the data resellers that work with the insurance companies. So they make different products and, you know, layers of information that insurance companies can work into their models. Ours specifically is just the ability to do a yes/no determination on if a parcel is located in a Firewise site. So we're working with the industry to make sure companies can verify, yes, this property is in one. Okay, we have filed a rate plan with this state's Department of Insurance that people living in a Firewise site will get this discount. We don't have those numbers. We don't control who does what. We can't tell insurance companies to do this, but we are trying to meet a demand that, quite frankly, far outpaces our capacity. We are a small team. I am the manager for the whole country. We have Aaron Anderson who manages our data. We have a part-time person in California. And then we have another full-time staff member who supports Firewise, but also supports other things. And so this is how we're able to work with that industry. We do map all the sites in Oregon, so we have those data sets, and as communities come on board, you know, we add them to the data set. As they choose not to renew, we remove them from the data set. We gather those maps from the risk assessments, and Aaron and the team that he works with through a contractor, they'll do that validation and reach out as they have questions. So you all are included. I always like to pause there because I know insurance is a big thing. But if there's nothing at the moment, I'll move
We
on.
got a couple questions in the room.
Yeah.
Okay,
This is Kevin Moriarty, County Forester. A couple of questions and comments. One, it sounds like, you know, that I think we're pretty aware of like how Firewise sites are established and the IBHS program coming on. I think it's kind of in the infancy in Oregon. I don't know too much about it, but my bigger question is, has there ever been, I know there's been discussion at one time, has there ever been discussion at a higher standard than just a Firewise site? Like a standard at a community scale where a certain amount of homes are meeting that defensible space and home hardening standard within that community, and they could get accreditation for that? Because to me, that would be pretty valuable for like insurance purposes. And then second question real quick is, do you, can you provide that actual data of where those Firewise sites are located? Like a GIS layer?
we have the point data that we can make available. The boundary data is a little trickier, but the point data for sure.
Okay.
So around the higher standard, there have been discussions over the years of like, what about a 4-star program? And there was some testing, I think, done in the Bend area. We did our Sites of Excellence pilot a couple years ago, where we worked with communities who volunteered to participate on, okay, within your boundary, select, you know, up to 100 homes. And the goal for them was to meet 100% of the mitigation recommendations at the home level and within that first 5 feet. And then I forget the percentage out to like 30 feet. The question, the difficulty comes into then we already ask a lot of our partners in participating in the program. We don't give you funding because we don't have funding to give you. So what is that standard that we would hold people to, right? And who's doing that follow-up? Who's doing that inspection? And we go back and forth and trying to figure out, can we do like a Firewise Plus or enhanced, or however we want to do it? Or our data licensing person keeps saying like, oh, what if we have these tiers of excellence? And I think that's the question, is how do we determine to what point? I will say right now they're looking at, in California, CAL FIRE specifically, trying to find a bridge between initial Firewise participation and the community designation, because not all communities are going to be eligible for the IBHS program just based on home proximity and building materials and roof types. Like there are certain criteria that some communities just won't meet. And so they have defensible space inspections. They're putting in those zone 0 regulations. So they're looking at all the different parts and pieces they're already working with, trying to figure out, is there that interim community designation that they could do? And we're working with them on that. I think the struggle is, how do we develop something nationwide that would be applicable when it's so highly variable who does what type of inspections or has the resources to do that follow-up. So it's a good question, and I'm always open to having follow-up conversations around what could this look like. We just haven't found the approach. But we are supportive of how can we help you if you were to do something local. But if the goal is insurance, how do we build something that the industry is gonna pay attention to? And I think that's the tougher question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got two questions.
Two more questions.
Hi Megan, this is Robin Church. I am the emergency preparedness lead for the Summit West Neighborhood District here in Bend. And so we are trying to reach out to residents and neighborhoods to cobble together a geographically connected network of Firewise communities to essentially expand our defensible space, broaden our reduce our risk over communities or neighborhoods. Can you help me understand how HOA communities and non-HOA communities organize? Do you have a sense of the 2,800 sites that are Firewise communities? How many of those are HOA communities and how many are non-HOA communities? I'm finding that non-HOA neighborhoods have a harder time organizing. They don't have a structure in place, for example, to accept grant funding and things like that. Can you speak to that?
I can speak to that by saying, no, I don't have, that's not a metric that we capture, but it could be an interesting one that we could try to capture is your community an HOA or not? Because I would agree, just like anecdotally, those who are organized under an HOA, a POA, other forms of some sort of community structure, they do a little better because they already have a system there to work under. But we also know that some homes within an area might participate in the HOA or not. So there's all kinds of side stuff. So we know it's highly variable. And even within those HOAs, that's highly variable with who participates or not based on what kind of rules they have on the books. You know, some people put stuff into their CC&Rs and different things that make it very, very carrot and stick, heavy on the stick approach. You know, they can impose fees or fines or do those different things around the work. And then some are more loosely organized and might have recommendations more under an architectural committee where they can update or change things a little more easily. But it is tough. And I think that's part of where the like size and scale piece comes into, you know, if you get up to 2,500 homes within your boundary, that's a lot to manage. And how does a volunteer who doesn't have a structure even think about outreach to that many communities? Gosh. I forget the rest of your question, but that's, what else do you want me to answer?
Well, if you're not capturing the data, then I don't think you'd be able to answer my question about how non-HOA communities apply for and manage
Great.
grants.
So some of them might be working with a local entity that can do that for them, right? So maybe it's their conservation district or their fire safe council, or maybe their fire department has a separate kind of spin-off organization who can receive funding, but we don't see many of those communities going after grant funding on their own. They're doing it in support with a fiscal sponsor. Some of them have chosen to create their own kind of nonprofit entity that they are umbrellaed under. But that is a process and that's a lot to take on. And we see those in just areas where the community is already, they're more highly organized, even if they're not in an HOA and They have people who come from a background where they know how to navigate that world. They have a lot of movers and shakers who came from high-powered jobs when they retired. But looking at some of our more rural communities, some of this can be just out of their depth and realm to be able to pursue. And that's where, again, in many states, I've seen other entities be that fiscal sponsor to help them go after grants.
Thank you.
One more question.
Yeah.
Yes. My question has to do with action plan and getting the work done. And it's one thing to become a Firewise site or community, but the residents even in that community, when there's a sign put up saying this is a Firewise community, I think they're deluding themselves, thinking that that's what makes a difference. And okay, I'm better now, or this is what we needed. You mentioned the wine and cheese, annual wine and cheese activity. It seems like, at least in this part of the country, we're engaged here with on a county level year round, and the communities, I believe, need to be doing that as well. So you mentioned this area as an area where we had initiated a 4-star program.
Mm-hmm.
And that was so that if this sign goes up and there's only 1 star and people are aware that much more needs to be done, then that could be some incentive. And I was part of reassessing the first Firewise neighborhood in Deschutes County about 10 years after they were accredited. And they had actually lost ground after 10 years. So I think more traction needs to be made in the area of continually doing work. And if the community is working on a once a year minimum where they get together and talk about things, that's not going to cut it. So I don't know where the question is in there. But I have a strong sense of what needs to be done that isn't being done.
I appreciate your statement and wholeheartedly agree. And I think that's the challenge with this as a voluntary program is how do we get people to see that year-round picture? How do we get people to buy into, you don't just do work on your property once a year and call it good, do it for prep day or whatever, or preparedness month or whatever, right? It's activity throughout the year. And, and it doesn't have to be big things every time you do something. An hour or two a month or every other week can really make a difference in cleaning up some of your property, but it's also then being able to identify those bigger projects that either an individual home or a whole community might need to take on, right? Because it's that balance between individual property work and then those community adjacent vegetation management projects. And and I agree. Some people see the sign or they look out and say, oh, look, the Forest Service is doing a thinning project. We're good. But if you turn them back to look at their own property and there's just stuff, human treasures, vegetation, things just right up by the house, that is part of the problem. And helping them see that connection between the fire and the wildland area and those embers that can travel. And I don't have great solutions because people have been trying for so long to get out there to engage residents, to give presentations, to share videos of all these different things. But but what makes people buy in? And is it just giving them money to do stuff? Well, that's fine to a point, but there's only so much money that entities can distribute. And this is also a private parcel problem. Um, so this is me just soapboxing and not really answering a question, but more agreeing with you. Like and it's a hard degree. I have been in communities, like I said, I've lived in one, and every day when I would drive home and I would crest this hill in Colorado and look over my neighborhood on the hillside, along with the other Firewise neighborhoods, where the south of where the Waldo Canyon had burned. A lot of work has been done there, but it's so steep and there's this oak brush and these homes are maximizing the lot size. So then they want the vegetation because they're big homes. They don't just want to see in their neighbor's window. And even if they're stucco, there's still gaps and holes, and it's just looking at it like, whew, how do we increase the pace and scale? And I think many of us are trying to find that, and I believe that's where we bring into, sure, voluntary to get organized, but then regulations in support of some of that work help. But the West is notoriously hesitant at regulating, right? I don't know about Oregon. Washington's a home rule state. Man, trying to get a building code passed around the WUI has been tough, but I can only imagine trying to regulate like that 5-foot area that California is trying to put into place. That's a tough one, but it's that balance of voluntary. Sometimes you got to use regulation where people just aren't willing to do things on their own. And how do you support the people in the middle? It's tough. And I will acknowledge that it's tough.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And, and I agree with you about, us folks in the West. I think sometimes that we're independent to a fault.
Yeah, it can be tough. I want to be mindful of time because I know you have, I'm sure, other things to talk about. I had a couple things just to share. If you're looking for any of our resources online, you know, we still have our brochures available. If you go to the main Firewise page, there's a brochures button at the top. It'll pop you down here to the bottom with directions on how to call in and place an order. We're working on getting stuff put back into our online catalog. When we rolled out a new website a year and a half ago and a new commerce platform, it messed with some of the settings that we needed in place. So we're working on that. If you're ever trying to find stuff on the NFPA website, the best way is to use the search bar and just to put in Firewise or whatever you're looking for. That is how the website was designed to be used, is really search based, but I know it can be tough. So that's what I use even when I'm looking for stuff, is I just go to nfpa.org and then I put stuff in the search bar. But we have blogs, videos, different resources. There is a Firewise USA resources page, and there's lots of stuff on there, but one of the new things is a presentation if you are going to speak to a community who's interested about joining the program. So this has been vetted through our staff and our legal team. It's meant to complement whatever local information you might need to put in, but our slides are set because they are very specific to the process and the why and how to work with it. But we are not experts on every local fire condition. And so that's again why it should be paired with some local slides to really paint your picture. And then I will just put in a plug for Wildfire Community Preparedness Day is coming up soon. It is May 3rd. And it is one day, but it can be that day to rally and get people going if they're new, or to help reinvigorate your community, but fully acknowledging one day of work a year is not nearly enough, and it should be ongoing and regular. Some things that have already happened. We already had our Facebook Live event, and I believe we have closed the opportunity to receive a banner if you put your project on the map, but we are still, we love having people do that, and just kind of highlighting the banner and the great things that people are doing out there. And then some of you might remember back in the day when we were able to give out those $500 awards. stuff changed with our partner in the funding at State Farm. And so now we're handing out bigger awards to organizations that can be that fiscal sponsor. So these different organizations are receiving $10,000 from NFPA and State Farm, and many of them are then putting those into those smaller grants that can go out to their communities. Our work right now has been primarily with nonprofits, but we're open to fire departments and other organizations, and we'll be reevaluating how to approach 2026 as we get into the summer and fall. And so more to come on that. But again, I touched on that risk number, and this is why those recipients are across the country, because the risk is spread across the country. So I think I'll end it there. I have more slides, but they're about like NFPA and other things that we do. And I know I've already taken a lot of your time, and I appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Megan. I think we had a couple of questions online. So if anyone wants to raise their hand for me so I can see. No, there's one in the chat here from Andy. He's asking, are you working with CoreLogic as a vendor for Wildfire?
I believe CoreLogic is on our list of the vendors who we provide the boundary data or the boundary data to. I'll have to go back and look, but I know they were on the list. These contracts are negotiated year to year and are not something I'm directly a part of.
And then Heather asked about flyers for Wildfire, or sorry, materials for Firewise. But I think Heather, was that question answered in the slides for you?
Yeah, she answered it just by saying that we can just call in since the website's not working. So.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Were there any other online questions before I move to the room?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Megan.
Yeah, well, thank you for the opportunity and for your support. And, you know, if other stuff comes to mind, Corinne, you have my email address. Feel free to share it out. If people are coming to you with questions or to pass things along, I can drop my email address in the chat. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Were there any questions?
Any questions?
We move to roundtable. Yeah, awesome, Megan. That was a great presentation. Thank you again, and I will follow up with you on a couple things, and then also get that video from us. We can get that shared out.
Durango? Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thanks.
All right.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and move to roundtable. We've got about 15 minutes left. One thing I wanted to remind everyone of is June 17th, we're having our annual Project Wildfire barbecue out in Sun River at the Shark Center. That's going to be from 5 to 8 p.m. I do need you to RSVP to attend because we are using a caterer and I need to know the numbers. So I have seen a number of you have RSVP, so thank you. Don't RSVP again if you already have. I do have your information if you already have. So I'm going to go ahead and share that link in the chat. And then if anyone in the room needs the link for that form, I can get that to you via email. So David, do you want to start something?
Yeah, three quick things from the Red Cross this month. As most of you know, a vast majority of our disaster preparedness and response work is done by volunteers. We do have one paid staff person that is kind of oversees that in Central Eastern Oregon, and that position is now vacant. So we'll be actively recruiting to get that position filled again, hopefully by the start of fire season. So I want to make you aware of that. A couple of projects that are going on right now. We have a home fire safety campaign where we offer free smoke detectors and home fire safety education to homeowners. We can do that at any point upon request, anywhere in Oregon. But we do have a targeted campaign going on later this month in Jefferson County and Warm Springs, where we're bringing in volunteers from around the state, hoping to install smoke detectors and do that home fire safety education in 100 homes. That's our goal. And the last thing is just let you know, we have a lot of local and volunteers from other parts of the country who are over in Kearney County right now, helping with the flood disaster and the ongoing relief efforts there. It ended up being a pretty big deal for those folks over there.
Do you have anything back there?
So we're working primarily in the North Rim right now, doing perimeters around the home, 5-foot perimeters of rock, 8-inch mesh on all the foundation vents, taking out all the old hazardous fuels, hauling it away. We've been doing a lot of that for the last 2 months. And anything else? And after that, yeah, we've been busy. So that's a Firewise community, but residents are definitely starting to do that 0 to 5 feet around their homes. So I think
Thank you.
Nothing for me.
nothing for me.
Steve?
Yeah, Upper Shoots, river communities, we're supporting these, wildfire preparedness fairs. I guess we'll have a table or something. And then we've had 2 ongoing programs to assist property owners with defensible space and some home hardening. And, the demand over the last couple of years has increased, so much that it's like, it doesn't really matter how much funding we can drum up. It's all gone as soon as we open the program for the season. So the most popular one was a reimbursement program that works as an incentive where we give the first $500 towards defensible space. And we've changed that to where we offer it 2 times a year in the spring and the fall, because we ran into situations where people would say, yeah, I want to do it. They make an application and then we have to reserve the funds. And then at the end of the year, if they haven't done it, somebody else missed out on an opportunity. So we're working it out as we go along, but there's a lot of exposure in South Deschutes County, and we can't do it all. So I hope that that there's more support coming soon, because a lot of people can't do the work themselves, and frankly, just can't afford to hire someone else to do it. So I went out and made an assessment this week for our low income program for seniors and disabled people, and they're really appreciative. But at the same time, in the back of my mind, I thought we can only have 2 more people apply for that program for the foreseeable future. And there's a lot of need. So I just want to report. Thanks.
Megan, Central Oregon Tree Experts. I wanted to mention we've been getting a lot of requests for Firewise HOA communities, and we're happy to do the whole entire community. Obviously giving discounts to all the people that can sign up at once, getting it. We've worked a little bit with Widgie and Lewis and Clark, HOA, Mile High Communities, Superior. So anyways, I just wanted to let anyone online know that as well, that we are offering discounts if everyone can get together with their Firewise communities and kind of do it all at once. It's easier for us that way. We just go home to home inside the community. So yeah, a lot of fee reductions, everything from 5 to 10 feet away from the house, and yeah, happy to help.
So as a Southern Deschutes kind of resident, I just want to get out there and help some folks. So there's one gentleman who's kind of wound up about fire maps and different things. I go, well, how about what's going on at your house, right? So I mentioned it to another friend from church, and 3 of us, my wife, 4 of us went over there, and we just kicked butt Saturday. And I mean, you could just see his whole mindset change just by getting some fuel reduction done. A couple interesting things from that was starting a small fire just with the small little dry branches, being able to throw a wheelbarrow full of needles on it and keep it small, not a big fire. And obviously there's some room for it, but we knocked it out, this weekend. And then on Sunday, my wife and her friend were playing around with a small electric DeWalt chainsaw, 12-inch. Come to find out, I mean, you don't need more than that little 12-inch saw, and the girls loved it. They were like, love playing with the saw. So, just getting people out to touch and do really mattered. It was just amazing. And obviously, getting the contractors out to do big things, but anybody could just do small projects at their house. And then also getting, for people that are still burning wood, right now is the time, getting it stacked and organized away from the house, obviously, for the summer. But, doing that before June instead of waiting until the fall, because that's fuel reduction in itself. If you're cleaning up somebody's property, people have small and medium-sized trees all day long in the southern Deschutes County area, still makes good firewood. And, there's opportunities for people looking for wood that want to clean up too. So, as you can see, we've got the brochure together for this April 26th event. It's happening around the county, but there's just kind of some motivation for people to work together. And then also this public lands cleanup, and that's in response to the Darlene fires around Lapine. We cannot keep having this happen, just uncontrolled long-term camping, unsanctioned, human starts, and it's just that scenario. You gotta get on top of that. So you can see there's 4 dates set up for public lands cleanup. Public land stewards, all the partners are there with us. Republic's online. We've been dispatching some dumpsters around, just kind of in a, how about you clean up your unsanctioned camp? And of course, dumpster shows up and it gets filled up. Some people find it and use it without the intention of what it was put there for, but at least people are getting focused.
Just on kind of on that topic, anything you can report on China Hat? I rode my bike out there yesterday and everything looks about the same out there, so I didn't know what's gonna happen the next month.
Well, I think of that as kind of like Tunnel Road. There's gonna be people that really wanna resist action because of human suffering and need. We've got to do something though, because of human suffering and need, because of the fires. Yeah, I mean, I support taking action there. Obviously, we're gonna have to displace people. But I think we're on the downhill side of the big picture. Last couple of years, COVID, we're just like, I don't know what to do. Well, what do we do? And then, money was spent. It kept getting worse, but I think we're gonna get on the other side of that this summer. And obviously, it's just human need, medically fragile, elderly people don't have a lot of opportunities. So, housing is being offered to some folks. Then you find that classic scenario where somebody's just kind of dug in. I've got my dogs, I'm fine out here, people bring me food and water sooner or later, so why do I need to leave? Okay, now we need to turn this corner. So I think that's kind of happening this summer. Still a collision course for some, but we'll get through it together.
Okay, Brian from Deschutes Woods, and 3 things. First is the work almost done on the ODOT railroad properties between the Deschutes Woods property owners and 97. So that's almost done. So that looks great, and everybody's excited about that. With the fire marshal grant that I've got used to have 3 dumpsters out there. What's happening is 3 dumpsters are getting in there on like at noon on Friday, and they're full by Saturday night. So I'm putting a fourth one at the church. So there's 2 dumpsters gonna be at the church coming this Friday.
That's good.
That's about all I can do, because I have to put them on private property, so I have to get approval. Now, the other thing is the fact that I am now on Oregon State Marshal Wildlife Risk Reductions Grant Program Advisory Group on that.
That's a mouthful.
Congratulations.
Huh?
Congratulations.
Time to get a longer business card.
That's all I got.
In the Summit West Neighborhood District, we are continuing to reach out to communities, neighborhoods to encourage residents to become a Firewise community, and happy to say that we are making some progress in that regard. It's very encouraging. And so we've got a couple of community assessments coming up. So that's great. We have also started our outreach to developers who are building in the Summit West Neighborhood District. And so far we've had 2 meetings out of 4. all of them have gone well so far.
How's it going? Lauren, Natural Resources Specialist for the county. Just wanna echo the updates from earlier about the spring sweat equity Ben rental program. 30 communities will be putting their dumpsters out between May and June. So we've got that ongoing. We'll have, again, the 2024 fall fuels reduction reporting form coming out in the next couple of weeks. So that'll be coming out soon. As far as fuels reduction projects go, we're finishing a couple up and we're getting ready to start one of our larger ones. That should only take about 2 or 3 weeks, and then we'll be rolling into the summer.
My name's Paul, and I work with the COIC, and we have a youth development program that helps re-engage students and young adults that are at risk of kind of not finishing high school, and we assign those students fuel reductions project through grant money from the state, and so we help identify at-risk populations, underserved and youth populations, and give them free fuel reduction services. And I definitely am very interested in how we can kind of expand that program to serve. Right now, it's definitely focused on the youth development and engagement of them, but you know, seeing a lot of need that outmatches the capability of the program to serve. And so with that being said, we do offer that service with the Central Oregon Wildfire Workforce Partnership through the COIC. Lapine is definitely our area where we have significantly more projects, but up in northern Deschutes County and Jefferson County, definitely looking for more projects to engage those work crews in, as well as Crook County. I think that's different. Yeah, we serve all 3 counties, so.
Thanks, Paul. Congrats on the job.
Yeah, we help all of them. No, not really. I mean, you know, we kind of just finishing off a lot of the fuel reduction work that we've been doing this fall, and we had a lot of contracts out. The next one that Lauren mentioned is Juniper Ridge. We're gonna be doing a fuel break on the city property out there, kind of in conjunction with treating county property, to kind of really try and prepare that area a little bit better this summer. So that project should start this month, and you'll see those little burn bot machines running around just like you saw on the side of the highway. So, oh, the robot mowers.
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
TV too, those are kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I got.
And then, so I had one thing, Robert Newey from Forest Service, he had to head out early, but he left us a couple of updates. So he said prevention folks are attending multiple Central Oregon Wildfire preparedness fairs with team teaching for first graders. That's gonna kick off this month. Prescribed fire conditions, we're starting to allow for prescribed fire. Sisters Ranger District is burning today and has tentative plans for more this week. You can view the interactive map at the centraloregonfire.org website if you want more information on that. Was there anything else online before we adjourn? Yes. Yeah. And yeah, so next month, Robert Newey from the Forest Service will be giving us an update on projects in Deschutes County as well as prescribed fire. So,
Yeah, so he can touch base a little bit on that cat.
He's a good answer, man.
And also in May, there's a steering committee meeting after.
yes, so the steering committee, if you're a member of the steering committee, next month after this meeting, will be meeting again for our second meeting of the year. So if you hold a position on the steering committee, that's for you. It's not open to the public, unfortunately. It's just the steering committee. Heather, did you have something?
Yeah, I threw a couple of things in the chat. Thanks everyone for talking about the wildfire preparedness fairs. We're really hoping to get that information out there and hope to see everyone at one of those events. We had some questions about the wildfire home protection strategies workshops. We are working on getting those scheduled. We do have the first one on the books for May 5th out at Brasada Ranch. they're generous enough to open up their space for the public. And so I posted that in the chat if folks want to register for that class or sign up on our interest form, and that'll help guide us to where we want to schedule the next ones and where. So, thanks for the feedback, and hopefully we'll see you at one of our events.
Great, thanks, Heather. All right, if that is everything, perfect timing is 9:30, so thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Megan, again, for that awesome presentation. We really appreciate everything. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Yeah.